WVUA-FM, Tuscaloosa.
I'm Nicholas Pursley, joined by Joe Schatz and Adam Hambright. How are we doing, gents?
Oh, I'm great, I guess. You know, it was a pretty rough weekend for Alabama sports, but, happy to be here, I guess. Happy to not be talking college basketball. Happy to be talking college football. So,
yeah, I'm a little rough, I was expecting not to be here tonight. Was expecting to be on the road about this time, coming back from Louisville, but, I got that started a little bit earlier. We headed back yesterday. Had to eat the price tag on an extra night at the room because it was non-refundable, but, it happens.
It is what it is. I feel your pain. Anyway, we've got a big show for you. Football's back. Finally, Alabama football is back. I feel like this will be the first show in a while that we've actually pretty much solely talked about Alabama football, so that's exciting. Planning on talking about Saban's comments from his first presser of the season to open spring practice. We're going to talk about the potential QB battle that's brewing in Tuscaloosa, and as always, for our final segment, Beef of the Week is back. So let's get right into it. Say that again?
I said by popular demand, Beef of the Week.
Yes, by popular demand.
I will not be trash talking my fiance this time. So I think we're.
Is it because she's listening now?
She's back in town. She's not taking vacations and stuff, and still trying to finish planning the wedding. So I'll keep her in a good mood.
There you go. Anyway, we're gonna get right into things. So. The big news since the last time we were here, obviously, Nick Saban's opening press conference of the spring, and it featured what a lot saw as a shot at Nate Oates. Obviously, the whole Tony Mitchell situation, which we haven't talked about on this show, I don't really feel like has been talked about much at all.
Yeah,
really.
It's kind of just been, when everything that's been going on around the Alabama athletic program, this happened, and then the attention just turned to what Nick Saban said and not what actually happened that made him say this,
Yeah. So let's talk about what actually did happen. So Tony Mitchell, the freshman four-star new recruit, defensive back, was arrested and charged with possession of marijuana with intent to sell in Florida. His passenger was also carrying a concealed firearm without a permit. In Florida, you do have to have a permit to carry a concealed firearm, unlike in Alabama. AL.com got their hands on the arrest report, which said that the vehicle contained 226 grams of marijuana and $7,000 in cash. And in evading the police, the vehicle was going 141 miles an hour. So not a good situation for the freshman. Nick Saban then said that Tony Mitchell was suspended from the team, and he said, quote, "There's no such thing in being at the wrong place at the wrong time." Now, obviously, that comes those words specifically seem to come off as a bit of a shot at Nate Oates and how they responded to their own bit of controversy in the program. As a reminder, Nate Oates and Alabama did walk back those initial comments. He apologized for them, and he said that he didn't take the remark as criticism. Saban said that he doesn't watch basketball press conferences, which is extremely believable, honestly.
Yeah.
But then, of course, there were the pictures that came out, I think, the day after these comments were made of Saban at the men's basketball practice, snapping some pictures. Good PR move there. So how do we feel about these comments? Do we feel like this was a shot at Nate Oates? What do we think?
I don't think it was. I think just like Nick Saban said, he doesn't watch basketball press conferences. I don't think he really watches anything other than game film and his practice film. I don't think he's going in and being like, oh, I got to, take a shot at a fellow coach at the university. Now, obviously, when Nate Oates made those comments, it wasn't the right thing to say. That was right after they had that court hearing that supposedly Nate Oates was not aware of what was made public at that time, which is when the PR should have not stopped the press conference, but delayed it a little bit, made sure Nate Oates knew everything going in. And then when Nick Saban has, his press conference and he makes this statement, it's two totally different situations. I won't get into all the specifics about the ongoing court case that's happening, but we've talked about it before. But that one where somebody happened to be in the area and was supposed to pick them up and had the weapon in the car is different than somebody running away from the police at 141 miles per hour.
Yeah, and I mean, just the stuff that he did after the comments were made where, he goes to the basketball practice and he, it was clearly not like this, Nick Saban, like, berating Nate Oates for what he said or anything. I mean, kind of like you said, Adam, I mean, it's I don't think Nick Saban's focused on the basketball, press conferences at all. He borderline. I think he went to like a couple games this year, but that's probably the most he's ever really cared about the basketball team. So, I think it was fairly simple. That I don't think it was meant as any sort of thing.
And I'm sure that they had already had that plan to where Nick Saban was going to appear with the basketball team anyway, just to kind of get them, hyped up for the next round of the NCAA tournament.
Well,
but
didn't work.
I guarantee you that the PR team had something to do right before going in there, being like, make sure you get a handshake picture with Nate Oates. I believe that there might be, some changes within the Alabama PR department, coming up just with how everything's been handled this year. But it seems like they are trying to be more on top of things.
So here's my take on this. Look, I think maybe there was a little bit of a shot, right? Okay, I think when you have something so high profile that happens at the University of Alabama, specifically in the athletics department, I think that regardless of what sport it would have been, who would have been involved, that Nick Saban's going to know about it. Because you could argue that maybe besides Greg Byrne, he's the most important person in the athletics department on this campus.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Definitely.
So I think he knew, what Nate Oates said. I think he's being a little facetious there. Yes, I agree with him that he's being truthful when he says he doesn't watch basketball press conferences, because that just seems like him. He spends like 99% of his day watching film. That's why he's so good. But I definitely think he did know what was said, and obviously, like, the comments were walked back. I think even if, hypothetically, if somebody had asked Saban and said, like, was that okay for Nate Oates to say that, he probably would have disagreed, right? He would have said, yeah, he shouldn't have said that, because the university had to come out and walk those comments back. Nate Oates had to walk those comments back. And obviously he was unprepared going into that. Nate Oates was. And that was a PR mistake. You have to prepare your coach for a situation like that before he's going to go face the media. But, I think it's more of, it's not so much as a shot at Nate Oates, but it's more of like a, hey, we're going to reinforce it, like, this doesn't fly in our program. Right? That's how I viewed it.
I mean, it could very well be that. I mean, because, Nate Oates, definitely, probably knows about this Brandon Miller, and what Nate Oates said in that initial press conference, because it did make a lot of headwaves. And, it could just very well be a thing of, it looks, this doesn't matter in the grand scheme of what happened in the crime and stuff, but it does look bad, like, recruiting wise. For, like, imagine if you're like a parent of a guy who could potentially go to Alabama, and you hear about, their star basketball player getting in, kind of involved in a murder case. So maybe Nick Saban wanted to kind of separate himself from the whole situation by doing something, but I don't think he was inherently taking a shot at Nate Oates while doing it. He might have just tried to save that the Alabama football side of the athletic department as.
Basically not going into the press conference going, oh, I'm about to rip into Nate Oates right here,
Right.
but definitely wanted to kind of make corrections for what the athletic department has made mistakes in the past.
Yeah, and one thing I will mention, since it's been, I can't remember when we did the whole Brandon Miller situation, like deep dive.
Probably been a month. There's a lot more information that's come out.
Yeah, Ryan Phillips, great article for Tuscaloosa Patch. If you haven't read that, I'm pretty sure anybody who's listening to this has read that. But if you haven't, please go read that, because that shines a new light on the whole situation that I don't think any of the national media really saw. So let's kind of look at some other stuff that Nick Saban said. I thought it was interesting. He talked about how somebody asked him a question about, you have new coordinators on both sides, a lot of change within the program, a lot of players leaving. And they asked him, what that was going to be like, what kind of challenges were going to be involved doing all that. And I found it was interesting. Saban basically said something to the effect of that he treats every single year like he just got the job. I just thought that was interesting. I don't know what y'all thought about that.
Well, it is pretty true. I mean, college football does change. I mean, at the very least, every 4 years. I mean, if at the very least, if you don't lose your coaches, your staffers, people like that, you're losing players every one recruiting cycle every 4 years, and you're obviously losing players every year. Just by the sheer nature of graduating. But I think it is kind of an interesting perspective, because Alabama did have pretty much a whole organization change. I mean, if we look at it and in terms of the NFL, imagine if an NFL team lost their offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, their quarterback, a couple linemen. I mean, it's pretty much it's going to be almost a whole new team.
Yeah, not just that, but like you said, the coordinators and the quarterback, that's big, but also the main running back that we had. Yeah. We keep the receivers, but one transferred. Defensive wise, we lost a lot on defense, and then all of the assistant coaches. We lost a ton of assistant coaches. I think 2 went to with Deion Sanders to Colorado, and we had a bunch of others just moving around. So it's this. I know he says that he looks at it every year like he just got the job, but this might be like the biggest turnover, like overall program-wise, since he got the job. So it'll be very interesting to see how he works it out this year.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. I mean, this is a complete overhaul, really. I mean, and I think a lot has been said about how he kind of wants to return things to, running the ball and playing great defense, and kind of reworking, getting back to that old Alabama culture. I thought another thing that was kind of interesting is he got really defensive when they talked about our new offensive coordinator, and they started talking about, the question had something to do with, since he's so young or something, and Saban got really defensive about this. He was like, it doesn't matter, old or young, it just matters that they do a great job and they have experience. So, yeah, I don't know.
Tommy Rees definitely has experience, not as much experience as some of the previous hires that we've had at the offensive coordinator, but I think it's a good hire, especially if he's trying to get back to that old Alabama style. The offense that Tommy Rees ran to Notre Dame. He's going to have better athletes, and it's going to look kind of similar to how Georgia's run their offense, which has seemed to work, especially with how good their defense has been. If we can kind of get back to having a dominant defense, I mean, we'll have to see how we actually play when the season comes out. Nick Saban wants to have a dominating defense. We haven't had that in a couple of years. Whereas you look at the SEC East with Georgia, they've had the best defense in college football. Maybe Michigan's up there with them, but Georgia's definitely had one of the best. And then they've had that offense where it's like, it's not very flashy, but it gets the job done. And maybe that's kind of what he's looking to go to. Probably this might look a lot more like the 2016-ish team, when we had Jalen Hurts as starting quarterback. Jalen Milroe's a little bit bigger, but, they have a very similar play style. So we'll see about that. And then defensive-wise, if we can have anything somewhat similar to the 2016 defense, we'll be in good shape.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, it's going to be interesting to see just kind of what – I mean, obviously, we're not going to know probably up until, the game kicks off week 1, who's going to be the starting quarterback. But when when you kind of made that comparison in 2016 and Jalen Hurts and the way that Milroe plays, it is, it is eerily similar. I mean, and I remember in Milroe's, the one start that he had against A&M this season, it was pretty much, he would drop back, look at one read, and if that guy wasn't open, he ran. And that's, not that, I think Jalen Hurts was a little more maybe developed than that. But I think just the way that offense could play with him and with Tommy Rees, who loves, at Notre Dame, he liked to pound the ball, he liked getting tight ends out. It could be really good if Milroe kind of takes that next step, which I don't know.
One thing I do want, because we'll get into it in a little bit, but like just figuring out who that quarterback is going to be, because we haven't had it recently, but we've had a couple of years where we've went into the first game of the season, we've went like, okay, you're going to get the job for the first quarter, you're going to go in the second quarter. Like we had that with
Jalen Hurts had that.
Well, yeah, with Jalen Hurts his first year for the first game, and we had it when Tua.
Yeah.
When he officially took the starting job, Tua and Jalen kind of split in that Louisville game. But I'm thinking more the year before Jalen got there, that 2015 year, where we were like 3 games in, still hadn't decided. They gave who was it? Because
like the starter?
We had Coker ended up with the starting job, but that was the game. I'm trying to remember his name because I think he left like right after it. Which was that?
Was Cooper Bateman there?
It might have been Bateman. I just remember we go into Ole Miss, we start, not Jake Coker, and then we're down, and we tried to come back, and we lost the game like 48-43. And week 2, we have Texas. We can't afford to have that against them.
Yeah, I got to hold these guys back. They want to talk quarterback so bad. I want to talk quarterback so bad. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're talking about who's going to be the starter week 1.
WVUA-FM, Tuscaloosa.
Welcome back in, folks, here to the College Football Wrap-Up Show here on 90.7 The Capstone. We're back for our second segment of the night on a kind of murky night in Tuscaloosa. I don't know if that's the right word that I'm searching for.
It's a storm.
It's weird. You got kind of that storm kind of coming in, and I think it's all driven from the athletic unsuccess from this weekend. We only so. The wins we did have, we had Alabama baseball. They won today. They did not get swept by Kentucky. And then you had, I know women's tennis. They won their matchup today. So that's 2 wins.
Oh, well, I got some more. Okay. So recent news. Okay, men's golf, big win.
I did hear about
Nick
this.
Dunlap wins. He's the first freshman since Robbie Shelton to win an individual title. So that's a big win. And the team won. So that's big. Wheelchair basketball, men's and women's, both won the national championship. For the women, it's 4 in a row. And then for the men, it's second in the past 3 years.
Yeah, that was what?
Dynasty.
That was like a week ago that the men won
I think
there.
that was about a week
So all
ago.
this happened, during our hiatus.
Yes.
And then, all of those victories have been overshadowed by other defeats. But let's get back to football.
Both in basketball. Well, we had to keep things a little positive, right?
Yeah.
In between us playing weathermen. So, let's get back to football. So obviously, the number one thing that's on most Alabama fans' mind is who is going to be the quarterback week 1. But one thing I want to get into before we start saying like who we think is going to be the quarterback week 1. Saban obviously led off with the same thing that every coach says about how there's no depth charts, everyone gets a chance. Are we really buying that? Like maybe specifically with the quarterbacks. Like, do we? I mean, come on.
Sorry, I was gonna say. I think this year, yes. I think he's pretty much done it almost every season. But I think Bryce's first year, there was no kind of, I get, maybe you're worried about it, but there was no quarterback really competition, I don't think. Bryce Young was pretty much the slam dunk guy, or alley-oop type of guy. And then this year, though, I think there was a legit quarterback battle because I think you have a guy who's actually played in a game and who has a fair amount of experience for a guy who's never, who's only really started one game. And then the other side is a freshman who really has not seen the field. I think Ty Simpson has thrown a combined 5 passes. So I mean, I think there is a genuine quarterback battle this year, especially with the difference in their play styles. And the new offensive coordinator probably has a lot of impact on that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because, like we were talking about with Tommy Rees's offensive style that he's had, you would think Ty Simpson would have an upper hand in that because of he is the more typical passer that Tommy Rees has had at Notre Dame. But Jalen Milroe brings you, a more athletic person who can open up your playbook a little bit. But Tommy Rees didn't run that type of playbook at Notre Dame. So it'll be interesting to see if just with what Tommy Rees's offense is supposed to be, how much that's going to impact, or is it just going to be who is the better quarterback. But if we're talking about with quarterback battles at Alabama, I think Nick Saban has been one of the coaches that has kind of kept it to where everybody does get a chance. I mean, when he first got here, it was John Parker Wilson. He was the starting quarterback. And then it was Greg McElroy. There wasn't really a competition there. A.J. McCarron followed. But then after that, Blake Sims, he had moved over to quarterback from running back, and he got the job. Jake Coker had the battle with Bateman. Jalen Hurts had to split time with, I think it was Blake Barnett in that first game before Jalen Hurts got it. And then, that second year it was Jalen Hurts' job. But then Tua comes in the national championship game, wins it, but then the next year, Tua didn't have the job. It was that first game against Louisville. It was Tua started, Jalen came in. Who's going to be, the better quarterback? Tua won the job then, and that was the infamous, was it Maria Taylor interview at halftime when he kind of snapped at her. And then, with Bryce, I think that was the first time in almost 10 years that it was like, yeah, there's not really a competition here because Bryce is just so much better than anybody else on the roster. This year, I do think it's more of a competition. I think with the two guys, so like Jalen Milroe has more game experience, which kind of puts him ahead, but then also Ty Simpson is more of what Tommy Rees is used to from Notre Dame. So it'll be interesting to see how this whole thing shakes up.
The other thing, too, and I'm sure Saban is very aware of this, he probably doesn't really want to come out and say anything in case one of those guys decides to transfer with the decision. So, like, if he came out yesterday for spring practice and said, we're going to rock with Jalen Milroe, like, Ty Simpson might be like, okay, well, I'm just going to leave, and still have enough time, really, to transfer into a school and make an impact. I mean, this was around the same time, Jamison Williams came to Alabama, was kind of in that spring football period. And I think Saban might be keeping that battle open for as long as he can without really pulling a trigger in case one of those guys, is going to be the type where, come week 1, if Ty Simpson's better, then Jalen Milroe, week 2 might leave, or he might leave, I should say now, as opposed to leaving week 2 of the season. So I don't know. That could be another reason why he says that.
I don't know how much of it would be just trying to get them not to transfer. I mean, that's definitely a good point. It could be part of it. But another part, as we get closer to the season, because I think this is going to be another one of those battles that is going to go at least right up to week 1. And then they might do the 2 quarterback thing in the week 1 game, but they're going to have a decision before week 2. And how much would that be just, we don't want to give Texas and their coaching staff any hint at who our quarterback is going to be, because like we were talking about, 2 very different play styles. It's going to be like 2 very different playbooks that they're going to have to.
That's true.
Especially if that week 1 game. Sorry, Nick.
No,
you're dying to say something. So that week 1 game is Middle Tennessee State too. So I mean, it's like, even if, I mean, let's say Jalen Milroe starts that game, goes out, throws a couple 3 or 4 touchdowns, and looks really good. It might not even be over then because, Texas is a whole new team and a whole new ball game there. So I don't even know if we'll know after week 1 necessarily who's going to be the quarterback.
I just want a decision before Texas. I can't handle another close Texas game.
That's fair. And I do think it would be especially important considering a large part of the reason why we almost lost that Texas game is because since Sark got to Texas, he was game planning for that game.
Yeah.
Like that specific game. Anyway, I'm not buying this. Like, this is whatever. Come on, coach. You know, I'm pretty confident that he knows who is going to be the starting quarterback week 1.
Oh, okay.
I just don't like the whole, like, when he says there's no depth chart, he's got an idea who's the leader in the clubhouse, you know, so to speak, right?
The other thing too,
So
like,
I'll let you go first.
I was gonna say the other thing with that depth chart comment is like that might mean that like come week 1, and I wouldn't really be shocked at this at all, but like Ty Simpson might have that job, and they might move Jalen Miller to like receiver or running back.
He
'Cause
was
getting reps
practicing.
at the Sugar Bowl at receiver. You know, now it was I think like screen passes. But I mean, with that type of, I believe at least.
Could we be looking at like a New Orleans Saints kind of play
Taysom Hill.
package where like with Taysom Hill
I was
just comes
just about
in,
to say that.
sometimes at receiver, sometimes at running back, sometimes at quarterback. You
There
know,
really is no depth chart there.
like you could, you know, if especially
He's just listed as athlete on the depth
Yeah.
chart.
I mean, like
Guy.
like you were saying, Joe, you were talking about how you didn't want them to transfer. Well, the best way not to get them to transfer
Yeah.
is like we still have a package for you. You're still going to get playing time as a quarterback.
Do the old, and I know it didn't work out for them. Do the old Justin Fields at Georgia, put him in on the
Okay.
fake punts.
Oh my god, you got this guy.
Fake punts at the 50 SEC championship. Put him in Milroe's hands.
Okay, but who do you think is going to be the starting quarterback? If you think Nick Saban already knows, well, just take a guess.
It's Milroe.
Okay.
100%. Like I have zero doubt at who it's going to be week 1. It would take Ty Simpson going out there and having the practices of his career. Like, I mean, he would have to blow Jalen Milroe away.
So how much attention are you going to pay at A-Day on like how well they're playing?
Okay.
Do you think A-Day has
All right.
anything to do with it?
I prepped for this exact question because I was going to talk about what I thought about A-Day. Let's rewind to A-Day last year, okay? It was super rainy. It was kind of crappy conditions,
oh my gosh,
right?
Yeah, that's right.
But let's remember this. White beat Crimson 25-7, like pretty soundly.
Yeah.
Naturally.
I remember Bryce not playing very well at all. You know, we can look at stats for A-Day if that's not what we want to do. Bryce was 14 of 29 for 153 yards. Milroe was 11 for 23 for 149. Bryce didn't throw a touchdown in the A-Day game this past week. But, I mean, then again, it's not like Bryce was going to lose his starting job because he played bad in the rain on A-Day.
The Heisman-winning quarterback loses starting job because of, you know, a practice game.
The Golden Flake A-Day
Yeah,
game. It's just
yeah.
truly tough. But, like, look, A-Day is not, like, super predictive. It's not, like, a great, like, oh, well, you know, Ty Simpson was on Crimson for A-Day.
You know,
Looks like he's starting week 1.
I do think this year's A-Day as opposed to last year's, I think this one is more of a how are you going to play in competition with fans in the stands, but it's like it's still the spring. Like you still have all your summer practices. You're going to have like once you get back to fall practice, that first game, everything can still change. I will probably pay more attention this year just because of, you know, new coaches staff, new quarterbacks, new players, but you know, we'll still have to wait and see.
Is there more pressure on you at A-Day because Nick Saban's standing literally 10 feet behind you when you're taking snaps?
I was going to say, I was just wanting to mention that. I mean,
You always hear from every player that's in the NFL, they always said like practices at Alabama were harder than NFL games.
so is A-Day harder than
The national championship.
I mean, is Lambeau Field got anything on Tuscaloosa A-Day game?
I don't know.
You know.
Hopefully there's a better turnout than there was for that rainy A-Day this past.
The weather really killed that.
What's the date for it
That
again?
was
I can't even
April
remember.
22nd, I believe.
Oh, and it's at the same time as like a softball game too. There were a lot of people upset about that. I mean, not the
April.
Fogs, but you know other.
Okay. Let's see here. It says it's set for April 22nd.
It's like middle of the day too.
Yeah, what time's?
They do not have a time set yet.
Oh, it's probably got to get organized by the ESPN people.
I heard that it was only going to be on ESPN Plus this year.
That could be weird. It's
The
probably
only
SEC
like the
Network
national
Plus.
champion gets the like ESPN.
And Colorado.
And Colorado.
Colorado's spring day game, I heard, is on, I think it's ESPN or ESPN2.
That Dion effect goes crazy.
Have y'all paid attention to what's going on at Colorado right now? So Deion Sanders, he had one of his first press conferences, and he has fully embraced Colorado. He's at the press conference. He's got a cowboy hat on and everything. It was kind of funny, but so for their practices, every player is wearing a black jersey, no number, and he gave a whole press conference talking about how everything's going to be earned, even your jersey number. Your jersey number means something. So that was kind of similar to how Nick Saban's saying everybody's job's open. He's like,
there's no depth.
You're not even guaranteed to your number.
Yeah. He's had some very interesting press, like Deion Sanders at Colorado has had some very interesting statements. Like I read somewhere where he would have meetings at 7 a.m., start the meetings at like 6:55, and if you weren't in your seat by 6:45, you were late.
It reminds me of my time in the
Oh,
military.
and the player who I think he sent out of the weight room because he had the wrong color socks on.
He
Yeah,
was
I heard
wearing
about
like
that one.
white socks
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, Deion's making an impact. I saw on TikTok he was really, getting that recruiting money, and he was doing a commercial for a portable air conditioner. It's like a cooler that you just put ice in, and it like works as an AC. Not an ad.
So this
Hashtag not an ad.
This is what he's starting off with. Like Nick Saban started off with like Ford trucks. Deion's got
Starting off with the portable AC.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I got to get you two on the record. Who's starting day one for Alabama? We're going to air this back when we do the morning show. First game of the season.
first game, Middle Tennessee State.
I'm going to air this back.
I'm going to say Ty Simpson because I think that the new offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees, will like Simpson more. I think he'll fit into the scheme a little bit better, and I think the things that Jalen Milroe can do. I mean, and then Bill O'Brien was not the best at calling plays. But, I mean, Jalen Milroe was 12 of 19, 111 yards in that Texas A&M game, so they didn't even really trust him to move the ball down the field a ton. So, I mean, I would think Simpson is going to get the start, at least going out onto the field. Now, whether Milroe, I think it's going to be one of those, like, each guy's going to have a pretty quick I forgot what the phrase, pretty quick, release kind of thing where, I think like if Simpson comes out and, he's, 1 of 5, or something into the second quarter, Milroe's going to go in. I think it's going to be a quick leash. But I'm going to say Simpson starts that first game.
Okay.
I will say one thing is that it is a true travesty that Milroe was not used as kind of the offensive weapon that we talked about. If you're Bill O'Brien, what are you doing? That guy's just sitting on your bench,
and he
really.
O'Brien didn't call a good game for Milroe against Texas A&M at all. So I don't think he was helped out by that. But I don't know. I think as much Saban values experience, and he's shown that a lot, I just think when Tommy Rees comes down and is going through practice, and I think Ty Simpson's going to be the more complete passer that Tommy Rees wants.
During the season, we had talked about stuff that we wanted to see, from Bill O'Brien. And then I think once we were talking about the new offensive coordinator, what we wanted to see, and it was more, more dynamic play call. We wanted more, not necessarily trick plays, but more dynamic plays. And you had, Jalen Milroe, you could have put him in there at running back, receiver. That opens up your playbook. You could have done double passes. You could have figured something out. But for this specific question on who is going to start on September 2nd, when the Blue Raiders of Middle Tennessee step onto the field at Bryant-Denny, I believe starting lineups get announced. They do the whole thing where Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson announce their names as the starting quarterback. Jalen Milroe takes the first snap. I do think it's going to be like he gets first quarter, Ty Simpson gets second quarter type deal, kind of how we saw it in the past. And then from then it's going to be who has the hot hand. I would lean more to Jalen Milroe from the experience going forward, but we'll see.
All right. Well, when Ty Simpson transfers in a couple of weeks, I'm going to play Joe's comments back and make fun of him for it. We'll be right back here on 90.7 The Cap City.
WVUA-FM, Tuscaloosa.
Welcome back in, folks. Here on 90.7 The Capstone.
What was that?
Yeah, I have no idea. Here to the college football wrap-up show, the final segment, the now legendary Beef of the Week segment. And by legendary, I mean we got a text about it last time after we did it, so we had to bring it back, right?
Yeah.
Only fair. So I think we're just going to hop straight in. I'll go first since we kind of want to get the depression out of the way. I will issue a mea culpa of sorts on the Whataburger. I went there for breakfast the other day, super early, but it was pretty quick. So I will give them that.
So we know that at least one Whataburger employee listens to the show, heard
Yes.
your complaint, and as soon
Exactly.
as you walked in was like, I cannot have us be the beef of the week.
They recognized me in the drive-thru,
Yeah.
in the drive-thru voice, and they were like, "We can't mess this one up, guys." Like
They were
he's-
like, wait a
he's
second.
gonna cut another promo on us on the radio.
They would have been the first ever two-time beef of the week, and it would not have been good for them.
They still could be the first ever two-time beef
Yeah,
of the
let's
week.
not get
I'm
ahead of
not.
ourselves.
I'm issuing a
I do have one of those cards.
slight
I'll go
apology
take
of
it.
sorts. Right, it's like a beef of the week punch card. You get like an hour-long segment if you get on there 10 times. Anyway, my beef of the week this week is with the Fogs. And this is a football show, so maybe there's a couple of them listening. But of course, Fogs, football-only guys. I can't stand these guys. Like, honestly, like, I don't know if it's just because, I'll be completely honest, I enjoy basketball a lot more than I do football. That's kind of
Blasphemy.
yeah, blasphemy from the guy doing the football show.
Wow.
But doesn't mean I don't love football. I love football too, but
You think you know a guy.
right. I was very excited for Alabama basketball to do well this year. And I'm just not I saw the same thing on Twitter the other night after we lose, the famous live and die by the three. Like, people who watch basketball 2 times a year have no clue what they're talking about. Trust me, you do not know ball. I did come on the show before, I'll own up to this, and I said that it would be a disappointment if Alabama did not make it to the Final Four. I did say that.
Yes, you did.
And it's a disappointment, but it's not I'm not mad about it, right? Because why should Alabama fans be mad at a Sweet 16 appearance? If I went back in time 4 or 5 years ago and I told you that Alabama was going to sweep the SEC title, so they were going to the regular season and the postseason,
Twice.
they were going to win 31 games. They were going to make it to the Sweet 16, and they were going to have the best player in all of college basketball.
Yeah.
People would have been thrilled.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of going off of your thing before this weekend happened, and I was talking to a lot of people trying to see if they were going up, and they were obviously they didn't want to spend too much money 2 weekends in a row, but they were saying we're saving our money for Houston if we make it, and I'm like, for me, I've followed it a lot longer, and. We've made it to the Sweet 16 now twice in the last 3 years, but that appearance in 2021 was the first one since 2004. You don't know if you're ever going to get back to that level, so
Yeah.
I
agree with you.
Yeah, so let's not we should not be mad at Nate Oates. I saw some crazy takes. It was we're never gonna win a national championship with Nate Oates as our head coach.
Well, we haven't won one
Get
without him.
out of here, man!
I was gonna
Well,
say,
the
technically-
door's right here. I mean,
Technically, we do have the 1929 and 30. We were awarded a national championship.
Put it in the
that,
rafters.
that was before the NCAA tournament, but we went undefeated
that
that
might
season.
have been before the NCAA.
all the
It was.
Fogs probably loved that one because that was classic John Stockton basketball.
Not
Yeah.
even.
You
That
know.
was
So
I don't even know who that was.
What was the basket like? It was the net still a basket at that
probably
point?
was. but
Peach basketball.
I've got it somewhere up here.
That's James Naismith originating the game right then and there.
But yeah, I did see, they were saying, the live by the three, die by the three thing. So I saw it, I believe it was Blake Byler.
Yeah, I have that written down.
You tell him then.
Blake Byler, the great stat, I think he said something to the effect of, for everybody who wants to keep pushing the famous live by the three, die by the three narrative, Alabama was 12-3 in games this season where they shot less than 30% from three.
Yeah. That was one of their big improvements.
That's crazy.
It was because of the defense. People actually tried on defense this year.
Yeah.
But so I do have it here with the head coach, Hank Crisp, the 1929-30 Alabama Crimson Tide men's basketball team, 20-0, 10-0 in the Southern Conference.
Oh, yes.
And
I think Tulane was in that one.
They were retroactively named the national champion by the Primo Peretta Power Poll. So
the true college basketball authority.
We need to hang the banner. I'm just saying we don't have that.
The Primo Peretta poll.
Primo Peretta Power Poll, and we don't have that banner hanging in Coleman Coliseum. I think that needs to be put up.
Did y'all see?
It's almost what did you say? 1929.
Yeah,
coming up on 100 years.
I mean,
when the anniversary happens, we'll hang the banner.
It's basically the same as UCF claiming that 2017 national championship.
Did y'all see? I don't know. Okay, I have not vetted this information. This could be some photo manipulation, but apparently Florida State has a banner that says NCAA canceled and for 2020, and then has their number 4 ranking on it, which is an all-time banner. Hang the banner, truly.
Yeah. So another thing about the banners. Are you done with your beef of the week?
Yeah, I'm done with my beef of the week. I've cut my promo.
I'm gonna get into my beef of the week. And first, I'm gonna say I took the trip up to Louisville, Kentucky for the Sweet 16 game, Alabama San Diego State, and looking at the banners from Louisville, big basketball history. That's their home court.
The KFC Yum
Center. KFC Yum Center.
Such a sick name.
And it's probably one of the better brand named,
although
places.
I will bring this up. Why would you have the Cardinals arena be named after a thing that fries chickens?
We don't need to get into all that, but
truly a tough thing.
But it's the second largest college basketball arena, but it is the only basketball only. With the other one's Syracuse, so they do football and basketball up there. They cut off half the stadium for basketball games, but it holds 22,000 people. Place was great. The lower bowl, no bad seat in the house down there. It was a great place. They had their banners up. Huge basketball history there. They do have one 2013 where they did win the national championship. That was the last time a number 1 overall seed won the national championship. But all those wins that season have been vacated. Yep. So the banner now says number 1 final coaches poll, because in the AP they were voted number 2 at the end of the year after winning the national championship. So it says final coaches poll number 1.
Wait, they were voted number 2 after winning the national. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the thing.
I would have some beef with that. I would not let that slide.
Yeah. So that is the banner. Now my issue going up there, I bought the student tickets, and allegedly, if the team had made it to the Elite Eight, we would have gotten better seats. We would have been moved down to the lower bowl since the other band spaces weren't going to be reserved. But I paid $125 for my student seat for the first game. You could have bought a ticket with a better seat for $20 on StubHub. My seat was about 2 rows before the back of the upper deck. I was above the rafters. And now I was able to move around a little bit. But when I'm up there, you put a bunch of college students around a bunch of Louisville people who were just trash-talking Alabama the whole time when their team only won 4 games. If you had worse students up there who had been drinking a little too heavily, things would have happened. Not a great idea to put a bunch of college kids that high in the stadium.
Well, that reminds me of, have you guys seen that clip of the, I think it was the Michigan-Penn State game? It was a couple years ago. It was Penn State's whiteout game, and I guess they put Penn State's visiting section. Oh my, yeah, that is high.
We're seeing a picture of where his seat was.
Yeah, but so Penn State, it was their whiteout game, and the Michigan visiting fans, their home section, or their visiting section, I should say, was in the top. It was the end zone. The upper level of the end zone, all the way to the right, and that was their section. They had this little sliver of just yellow, And I was like, "Cool,
Yeah.
you could not put away fans in a worse area than pretty much right next to where all the rowdy college kids are going to be."
Yeah, so if, and like we said, don't know if it's true. We didn't make it. I'll never find out unless we do this again within the next couple of years. But I would have had to pay another $125 for another student ticket, but supposedly it would have been like down close to core side, kind of how it was for the SEC tournament. And then the Final Four, it is like all like next to the core. But once again, my only experience is a Sweet 16 because we didn't make it past it. So not worth it if I'm not going to get a better seat the next game.
Wow, who would have guessed? Yeah. All right, I'll go to round this out. I had to be for the week in mind before we went on air, but I've since changed it because I had a terrible experience today at the Chipotle on University Boulevard. My beef of the week is with that Chipotle because that place
Bad beef.
lost an order. So me and my friend ordered Chipotle. We go down to I go down to pick it up because it's ready.
You placed the order there?
I placed an order on the app.
Okay.
Or yeah, me and my friend did. And like he drove, couldn't find parking, so I went out and got it. I sit in there and I see mine. It says, Joe S. And I pick mine up, and I'm like, hey, how much longer for an order for the name of my friend? And they were like, well, it's gonna be they said it's on the way. So I sit down. Probably 20 minutes pass, and I go back up there and I'm like, hey, where's the order? For my friend? And they said, well, we put it out here. So is it not out there? And I'm like, no. Like, and no name is even close to it that's even out there. So like there was no mistaking the name. And they were like, well, we'll see what happens. And then they scroll down, on their little scanner thing. They're like, yeah, it says we took it out. So, and then they go, do you want us to make it for you? And I'm like, well, yeah.
Yeah, no, don't make my food, man.
Appreciate it. I'd love that. So then they remake it, and then the lady doesn't even tell me that it's ready, and she just puts it up there while I'm like looking at my phone. And so I probably waited 5 minutes and didn't even know that the order was done. So yeah, that's my beef for the week. The Chipotle on University. You guys, no restaurant themes. I'll take it. I'll take the range, or I'll take it this week where you did the Whataburger, I'll do the Chipotle. I
admire that.
We'll just keep losing sponsors left and right.
I admire that. We're just soon. There's going to be nobody left to sponsor us at this point.
Yeah,
it's
no.
truly tough. Anyway, that's going to do it for us, folks, here on the College Football Wrap Up here on 90.7 The Capstone. Join us same time next week. Have a nice night.
WVUA-FM, Tuscaloosa.